No one has enjoyed drumming up nonsense gossip stories about Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders more than the mainstream press. In fact, there were a number of headlines and stories written yesterday in an effort to bash Bernie Sanders as nothing more than a sexist who has all sorts of issues with women. In fact, we have a JR rated video that I want to share with you. This is just like a quick compilation of some of what you could have expected yesterday on cable news.
Wonder what's going on between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and what that must look like behind the scenes of the Democratic debate that's about to unfold.
Yeah, hey Harris, so the two progressive frontrunners and longtime friends now seem to be at each other's throats.
In a statement to NBC News, Senator Sanders called the charge ludicrous. I'm not sure that's a denial.
Progressive on progressive. It gets getting ugly out there. 3 weeks to Iowa caucuses.
The person we do not have an on-the-record statement from is Senator Elizabeth Warren. The next time we expect to see her, Jake, is on the CNN debate stage tomorrow night, where she will be standing one podium away from Bernie Sanders.
Margaret, I've been waiting for a real fight. I like fights in politics. This is about a fact.
Now they're calling each other out by names and their fights are getting pretty personal.
My instinct is to believe her because Sanders had a campaign in which he had to apologize to the women who worked for him for not treating them as pure professionals.
I think, Harris, the question tonight is not, does this come up, but do we see the two progressive candidates, frontrunners, reach some sort of truce, or does this back and forth escalate even more?
She said that's exactly what he said. This is great stuff.
Yes.
No, it's amazing how much misinformation is out there. And in the case of Chris Matthews, first of all, he reads a small sliver of Bernie Sanders' statement to these accusations. And he's like, oh, it doesn't sound like a denial to me, didn't deny it.
Ludicrous isn't a denial.
So it's the most absurd thing. If you read his whole statement, which he did not do, right? He denies it. He says absolutely not, unequivocally no, did not say that, right? Look, I think that Chris Matthews is probably just this typical lazy cable news personality who didn't even read the full statement and just went off of what one of his segment producers put up on that screen, and that's it. That wasn't the entirety of his statement. Or let's keep it real, Chris Matthews doesn't exactly hide the fact that he has disdain for Bernie Sanders. So that could obviously be part of it as well.
It's also true of everyone in that compilation, basically.
Right. Look, this is what the media has been trying to goad them into for so long. Why did her campaign do this? It's so stupid.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, and probably self-defeating. Look, they like it partially because almost all those people don't like Bernie Sanders. Like, you had reporter MJ Lee, who was one of the original reporters, talking to Jake Tapper. And like, I could just tell Jake Tapper, like, how much is he liking this news cycle?
Oh, he loves it.
Like, that's what he loves. And so the media is generally predisposed to not like him, but let's keep it real, they probably don't absolutely love Warren in comparison to something like Biden and Buttigieg and stuff like that. And so they like that. They certainly like the drama. I've been waiting for a fight. I just want to see a fight. You know, who cares what actual effect it has? It has nothing to do with what they'd actually do as if they were president. But let's focus on this for a couple weeks. Let's ignore that whole, hey, we almost got in a war with Iran thing, and oh, all of Australia's on fire. Forget that stuff. Biden finally having to take stock of his record on Iraq, where that's boring. Let's move on. Let's go to a fight. And then there's also some people. If your whole identity in this extended career thing is like standing for one of the candidates, you kind of like this too, because finally they're fighting. Now I can just torch the other one. That's why a lot of people like me and you, and I talked to Emma on my show today. I saw Varshney Prakash, the executive director of Sunrise, just like, I hate this whole thing because it helps no one in our group. But some people like it. They like feeling free to just torch the other side. And that's why there were people attacking Bernie Sanders viciously online yesterday, and vice versa. People I want a truce because I think it's defeating to both of them and helps the centrists. But some people, they like being able to turn their guns on the other side.
Yeah, but I want to be clear, because he's not the one who started this. He's not even the one who engaged in it. He didn't engage in it. The only time he engaged in it was to release his statement. But other than that,
which was ludicrous.
Other than that, if you focus on what his campaign was doing yesterday, what were they doing yesterday? They were focusing on Biden's war record. That's what they wanted the conversation to be. And that's what we want. We covered that story as well. But my point is, I don't want anyone to get the idea, at least for me, that there's any type of like false equivalency here. This was a leak from her campaign, and it led to a media firestorm that is disastrous for both of them. whichever person or people from her campaign made the decision to do this, wake up. We're in a completely different era, right? So the disgusting, dirty tricks that you guys have played in other campaigns that might have worked out for you isn't gonna work now. And this backfired on Warren considerably. In fact, there was a hashtag refund Warren that went viral on Twitter. A bunch of people wanted Act Blue to refund their campaign donations to Elizabeth Warren. Like, who's winning here? It's stupid, it's just dumb. This morning I saw a tweet by a political reporter over at the Daily Beast. It read, "Scoop. In a recording we obtained exclusively, a person conducting training calls for Bernie Sanders' campaign instructed a volunteer to tell voters in New Hampshire incorrectly, it's not incorrect, that he is the only 2020 candidate who supports Medicare for all. Then the volunteer asked about Warren." Then you read her article, by the way. Hannah Trudeau's the name of the reporter. You read her article and she contradicts herself in her own article. In early November, a person who appeared to be conducting trainee calls for Sanders' campaign instructed another individual to tell prospective voters in New Hampshire incorrectly that Sanders was the only candidate running for the Democratic nomination who supports Medicare for all, according to an audio recording obtained exclusively by the Daily Beast. The call was inadvertently left on a voicemail on a New Hampshire phone number. Okay.
Inadvertently, it was a phone call.
It's so stupid.
How inadvertent is a voicemail message?
Let me give you more. In the nearly minute-and-a-half long recording, the trainer explicitly says that Sanders is the sole candidate fighting for the policy. Okay, so where were there any lies, in the training call?
Well, there's a lie in the tweet.
There's a lie in the tweet.
Because that's not what the phone call says. The phone call doesn't say that he's the only one that supports something like Medicare for all. It says he's the one that will fight for it. You know, that sort of verbiage that's in literally every political ad. All of them say they're the ones who will fight the hardest and the best. That's what a political ad is.
So let me tell you the difference between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren in case you guys have missed it. On the issue, on the policy of Medicare for all. And I say policy because this is not a personal attack. It's called analysis. That's what people do. They analyze the differences between the two candidates when it comes to policy, okay? Does that offend people that we're talking about the policy differences in a Democratic primary? It's pathetic. All right, so here's the difference. Bernie Sanders has legislation for Medicare for all. He would want it enacted immediately, right? And there's a transition plan. He's very specific about that. It's one bill, it's one proposal. Elizabeth Warren said she was in favor of that until all of a sudden she starts moving closer to the center and she decides, no, I'm gonna fight for a public option first. And then in my third year, this is based on her own transition plan. Go ahead and read it, okay? In my third year, I will push for Medicare for all. Her third year is when she's running for re-election. She's not gonna push for Medicare for all. We all know that. So the reporter doesn't get into those details. She doesn't share any of that. She just says, based on her opinion, that it's incorrect to argue that Elizabeth Warren isn't gonna fight for Medicare for all. But how are you gonna argue that she's gonna fight for Medicare for all when in reality she's proposing a public option?
And it's all nonsense anyway. It's an opinion. That's all it is. Who's gonna fight hardest? They all think they're gonna fight hardest. It's a scoop. It's a voicemail that was left 3 months ago, minimum 2 months ago, that they're dragging out now as if, oh my God, we got access to this. Do you know that they inadvertently left it in a voicemail box? Yeah, they left it on 1,000 voicemail boxes because they were calling people and some of them weren't there. They're acting as if they found like papers that were left behind at the bottom of a filing cabinet or something. It was their public stuff. You could talk to any number of voters that talked to someone and that's the conversation they had. This is not some sort of major scoop and it's not new.
Right, it's not new, exactly. But the effort to demonize him for doing what someone is supposed to do in a campaign and for telling the truth, like he gets in trouble for telling the truth, or his campaign gets in trouble for just differentiating their proposals from their opponents in a primary.
He should really be leaving voicemails attacking himself. That would be classy, I
He'd get
think.
attacked for that as well. I mean,
Probably
there's
somehow.
literally nothing he can do without intense media scrutiny, and it's pathetic.
TYT is all about challenging and disrupting the status quo, and so is Aspiration. Aspiration does not invest your money into fossil fuel businesses that harm our planet, such as pipelines and oil drilling. Instead, you'll be able to fight climate change with tools like AIM, the Aspiration Impact Measurement, and Planet Protection. They also don't hit you with outrageous fees for you to access your own money. You can even earn cash back and get free ATM uses up to 5 times a month. Head to aspiration.com/TYT to learn more. For a limited time, get 30 days of free TYT membership when you sign up.